This report addresses a series of critical assertions that underpin such concerns. The proposition of an overwhelming migrant crisis, the notion of a pervasively rising crime rate, and the claim of government censorship of its population. The objective is to move beyond rhetoric and conduct a rigorous, evidence-based examination of each of these premises. The analysis will be grounded in official statistics, peer-reviewed academic research, and comprehensive governmental and non-governmental reports. The methodology employed herein is systematic. Each assertion will be deconstructed through a multi-layered analysis that provides statistical depth, historical context, and comparative perspective. Following this empirical dissection, the report will address the ultimate question prompted by these anxieties: the risk of civil conflict. By applying established frameworks from the field of political science, this final section will assess the United Kingdom's current state against the theoretical and practical preconditions for civil war. The aim is to provide a response that is exhaustive in its detail, nuanced in its understanding, and uncompromising in its commitment to factual accuracy, thereby offering a definitive assessment of the nation's social and political health. Section 1. The UK's migration landscape, crisis or complexity. The narrative of a nation overwhelmed by a migration crisis is a powerful and persistent feature of public debate. However, a comprehensive analysis of the available data reveals a far more complex and dynamic picture, one shaped by global events, shifting government policy, and long-term historical patterns. This section provides a statistical, contextual, and historical examination of migration to the United Kingdom to determine whether the crisis framing accurately reflects the empirical reality. 1.1. Contemporary migration flows, a statistical analysis. An examination of the most recent data from the Office for National Statistics, ONS, is essential to establish a factual baseline for migration flows. In the year ending December 2024, provisional estimates place the UK's net migration figure at 431,000. This figure represents the balance of 948,000 people immigrating to the UK and 517,000 emigrating from it. This latest figure marks a significant turning point. It follows a period of historically high immigration, which peaked at approximately 1.2 to 1.3 million per year in 2022 and 2023. The net migration figure for the year ending June 2023, for instance, was estimated at a record 906,000. The subsequent sharp decline is therefore a critical feature of the current landscape. Immigration in the year to December 2024 was below 1 million for the first time since the year ending March 2022, indicating a rapid cooling of the post-pandemic surge. The primary driver of this recent reduction is a substantial decrease in immigration by non-EU nationals, which fell by 44% from its 2022 peak. This decline is not a random fluctuation, but a direct consequence of government policy changes, particularly the restrictions on dependents accompanying individuals on work and study visas, which came into effect in early 2024. In the year ending December 2024, study remained the most common reason for non-EU migration, 266,000 people, but this was down from a peak of 438,000 in the year ending September 2023, with the fall concentrated among dependents. This demonstrates that migration levels, rather than being an uncontrollable force, are highly responsive to specific policy levers. The perception of a perpetual crisis is arguably fueled less by the absolute number of migrants at any given moment and more by the sheer volatility of the figures. The data shows that net migration could multiply more than fivefold in a decade, from around 160,000 in mid-2012 to the peak of over 900,000 in mid-2023, before being sharply curtailed by reactive policy changes. This rapid fluctuation, amplified by political rhetoric, creates a persistent sense of instability and a system that appears to lack predictable control, feeding a crisis narrative even as the numbers are falling. A stable, predictable and transparent immigration system, rather than simply lower numbers, may therefore be a more critical factor in building public confidence. It is also vital to note a significant methodological shift in how the ONS produces these statistics. Since 2012, estimates have been based on a new methodology using administrative data, which has been backdated to that year. As a result, estimates from before and after 2012 are not fully comparable, introducing a degree of uncertainty into long-term trend analysis. In terms of scale, as of June 2023, an estimated 11.4 million non-UK-born residents lived in England and Wales, equivalent to approximately 18% of the population. 1.2. The asylum system in European context. The issue of asylum is one of the most politically charged and publicly visible components of the migration debate. In the year ending June 2025, a total of 111,084 people claimed asylum in the UK, a figure that represents a record high, surpassing the previous peak in 2002. This has placed significant strain on the asylum system, with costs rising to £5.4 billion in the 2023-24 financial year, largely driven by the reliance on expensive hotel accommodation to house applicants while they await a decision. A closer examination of how these asylum seekers arrive complicates the public narrative. While irregular routes, particularly small boat crossings across the English Channel, are a significant method of entry, accounting for 39% of claimants, a substantial and growing proportion, 37% in the year to June 2025, entered the UK legally on other forms of leave, such as work, study, or visitor visas, before claiming asylum. This trend, which has seen claims from those on visas triple since June 2022, suggests a more complex dynamic than is often portrayed. This shift demands a policy focus that looks beyond border security to the integrity and pressures within the entire immigration system. Crucially, these national figures must be placed in a wider European context to be properly understood. In the year ending March 2025, the UK received the fifth largest number of asylum applications, 109,343, within the EU plus bloc. Germany, 218,550, Spain, 164,830, France, 159,260, and Italy, 151,525, all received substantially more applications. When these absolute numbers are adjusted for the size of the host country's population, the UK's intake appears even more modest, ranking 17th in the EU plus bloc. Section 2. Crime and public safety. Perception versus reality. The assertion of a rising crime rate is a potent driver of public anxiety and is frequently linked implicitly or explicitly to immigration. A rigorous analysis requires a careful examination of official crime statistics, an understanding of the different methodologies used to measure crime, and a review of the academic evidence concerning any causal relationship between migration and crime rates. 2.1. Methodologies in Crime Measurement, CSEW versus Police Records. The CSEW is a large-scale, face-to-face victimization survey that asks people about their experiences of crime over the past year. It is widely considered by statisticians to be the most reliable measure for understanding long-term trends in high-volume crimes that affect the general population, such as theft, criminal damage, fraud, and violence. In contrast, police-recorded crime data reflects offenses that are reported by the public and subsequently recorded by police forces. While this data is essential for capturing lower volume but higher harm offenses that the CSEW cannot reliably measure, it is a less dependable indicator of overall crime trends because it is sensitive to changes in police recording practices, policing priorities, and public willingness to report crime. 2.2. Long-term and recent crime trends. When examining the most reliable long-term data from the CSEW, the overarching trend directly contradicts the narrative of a continuously rising crime rate. However, the most recent data presents a more complex picture that helps to explain public perception. The CSEW for the year ending March 2025 estimated 9.4 million incidents of headline crime, a 7% increase compared to the previous year. Critically, this rise was almost entirely attributable to a single category, a 31% surge in fraud, which reached an estimated 4.2 million incidents, the highest since this measure began in 2017. An analysis of police-recorded data for the most serious violent offenses further challenges the notion of a society becoming more violent. In the year ending March 2025, the number of homicides decreased by 6% to 535 offenses, the lowest level since 2014. Offenses involving firearms also saw a significant 21% decrease. Offenses involving knives or sharp instruments remained largely stable, with a negligible 1% decrease. The data does, however, reveal increases in certain high-visibility crimes that likely shape public experience and fear. Police-recorded shoplifting offenses rose by 20% in the year to March 2025, reaching their highest level since current recording practices began in 2003. This perception is compounded by the performance of the criminal justice system. Charge rates for many common offenses remain exceptionally low. For example, in the year ending March 2024, only 4.3% of residential burglary offenses and 2.2% of vehicle theft offenses resulted in a charge or summons. This creates a powerful sense of impunity, where victims see little prospect of justice, which can fuel public dissatisfaction and fear, irrespective of overall long-term crime trends. The public's anxiety, therefore, appears to be a rational response not to a wave of violence, but to a combination of a real increase in high-volume, low-level crime, shoplifting, a massive surge in invasive but non-violent crime, fraud, and a justice system that seems incapable of delivering consequences. This creates a powerful sense of impunity where victims see little prospect of justice, which can fuel public dissatisfaction and fear irrespective of overall long-term crime trends. The public's anxiety, therefore, appears to be a rational response not to a wave of violence, but to a combination of a real increase in high-volume, low-level crime, a massive surge in invasive but non-violent crime, and a justice system that seems incapable of delivering consequences.